Hello, I'm Sean Hughescamp.
And I'm Monsignor Charles Minor. Welcome to this edition of Reel to Reel. Tonight we're at our usual format for the program because for the last several weeks we have been interviewing guests here in the studio. We'd like to know and hear from you about what you think of our guests and the things they've been saying. In fact, we'd like to know what you think about Reel to Reel.
We get letters from some of you, but there are a lot of viewers out there who we never hear from. And tonight is your chance to talk back to Reel. Right now, our producers are standing by these telephone numbers. In the 215 area code, call 587-3775 or 587-3747. If you live in New Jersey, you can dial direct at 757-0272.
And when you talk to our producers, they will ask you questions, something like, what is your name, or what do you think about Reel to Reel? But this is not a request for money. We really want to know what you think about our program. Now's your chance to call now or later during the program and talk back to Reel to Reel.
Money is the subject of our first story tonight. It's about tuition tax credits, something that might one day give many of you another tax break. Tonight, we'll examine that issue. We'll also learn how that old-time religion remains alive in the mountains of North Carolina. In our short subjects, we'll meet an ex-convict who is helping others go straight.
And don't forget, tonight is your chance to talk back to Reel. So why don't you call us right now?
At area code 215-587-3775 or 587-3747. In New Jersey, dial direct at 757-0272. We all pay taxes to support public education, but the proponents of the tuition tax credit for private education argue that the credits would actually affect all taxpayers in a positive way. In tonight's story, we'll take a look at both sides of the issue.
The Archdiocese of Philadelphia fully enthusiastically supports tuition tax credits and the legislation that is before the Congress at this time. And the reason that we support it so enthusiastically, that it is a means of relieving some of the tax burden from the non-public school parents who are shouldering not only the tuition burdens, but also the tax burdens for sending their, or supporting tax burdens for children who are in public schools.
I know that the argument is those who use Catholic education are taxed twice. But it seems to me that if the reverse is true, if tuition tax credits were to be passed and were to be found constitutional, we would have all Americans paying twice for an educational system that 90% of Americans do not choose to use.
Everything continues to spiral upward, and education is certainly not immune. All of us have the choice of sending our children to local public schools, which we already pay taxes to operate, or to private schools, which place an additional drain on already tight budgets. Many parents who choose private education feel strongly that, in a sense, they are doubly taxed, and that the federal government should at least reimburse them partially for the taxes that they pay to schools which they never use. In our story, we'll take a look at both sides of the tuition tax credit issue. Would they help to erase some of the inequities of the present educational funding system or create new injustices?
There is a principle involved, and I think that's the fundamental point that we have to look at. In the United States of America, we publicly support a lot of things besides public education. We support water systems that supply everybody in a city by general taxes, or municipal hospitals by general taxes. If indeed we choose
Mr. Freitag is Vice President of the National Education Association.
And we think this fundamental commitment to public education is part and parcel of our United States way of life. And although we respect the right of individuals to prefer something else, we don't believe that that ought to be at the expense of the general taxpayer.
The NEA represents the concerns of public education nationally, and consequently has been a strong opponent of tuition tax credits. Basically, their position states 3 reasons for their opposition. They feel that tuition tax credits are poor public policy, that they would violate the First Amendment, which guarantees separation of church and state, and that tuition tax credits would be economically unsound.
Very poor public policy. We believe that part of the genius of our American society has been a commitment through all of the history of the United States to public education. We believe that the federal government has a role in the support of education, public education, in providing for equity of access to education, in providing for equality of opportunity for access to education, and also in providing for quality education.
We often hear the claim that if tuition tax credits were passed, that it would have a devastating effect on the public school system. There's no evidence, existing evidence, that indicates that that would happen.
Dr. Palestini is Director of Secondary Personnel for the Office of Education in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia.
There is some hard research, and in fact it's the only research that's based on scientific evidence that I know of that has been done recently by James Coleman, who was a noted educator in our field. And he recently wrote a book called Public and Private Education, and in that book he indicates that tuition tax credits, if they have any effect on public schools, would only have the effect of taking or giving the opportunity for minority students, especially Hispanics, giving them the opportunity of moving to the Catholic schools, but not in great numbers, he indicates.
How would tuition tax credits work? According to the bill that President Reagan is supporting, parents who send their children to private schools would be entitled to 1/2 of the tuition up to a maximum of $100 for the first year of the bill. This would be true for each child. The bill would be effective for 3 years, so in the second year, each parent could get a tax credit up to $300, and in the third year, a maximum of $500 for each child. A tax credit, unlike a tax deduction, is more beneficial to the individual because it allows you to subtract directly from the amount of taxes that you owe the federal government. With a tax deduction, you subtract only from taxable income. At the end of 3 years, the bill would have to be reviewed and then be voted on again.
Let's keep in mind some facts about the enrollment in private education. 67% of the parents of private school kids have incomes of $25,000 or less. That's 2/3. Even more significant, the mainstream of private education is in our central cities, in our major older cities. And the fact of the matter is, the parents of the kids who go to school in the middle, in our central cities, 70% of those parents have incomes of $15,000 or less. We're talking about the mainstream of private education there. And to think that we're subsidizing an elite population when you're talking about a reality which is that, it seems to me is a great mistake.
Mr. Smith is Executive Director of CAPE, or the Council for American Private Education. CAPE is a Washington-based coalition organization serving elementary and secondary private education.
This is not just a Catholic issue. In support of tuition tax credits are a number of our other organizations, the Calvinist schools out in Michigan, Christian Schools International, the National Hebrew Day Schools, the American Evangelical Lutheran Church, the National Association of Episcopal Schools, many other individuals within many of the other organizations.
Opponents to the tuition tax credit, like the NEA, fear that the First Amendment to the Constitution will be violated, since, in fact, the tax credits would go to support religious groups, which run over 85% of private schools.
The whole question of the church, separation of church and state, has been tremendously blown out of proportion in discussing tuition tax credits.
Dr. Anthony is the director of the Office for Educational Assistance for the United States Catholic Conference.
Tuition tax credits do not represent aid to schools. They represent aid to parents, much as energy credits, child daycare credits, and some of the other credits that have already been enacted by Congress, which provide some relief, at least, to parents because they are doing something which benefits the entire society.
Decisions of the Supreme Court are pretty clear in all of the areas that would be back before the court should such a bill pass. For instance, the level of involvement or entanglement of the state in church matters. There isn't any way that we could be supplying billions of dollars to private schools, which are religious-connected schools, without there being entanglement, as was described in a Supreme Court decision.
As far as the economic effects of the tuition tax credit bill and their impact on the federal budget are concerned, supporters of the bill argue that it would cost $720 million a year compared to the $10 billion given to public schools annually. They also say that it would actually save taxpayers $8 billion because that's what it would cost to educate the over 4,800,000 students currently enrolled in private schools. Although the tuition tax credit bill has received strong support from President Reagan, it appears that there is still a good deal of opposition to be overcome before passage in Congress would be assured. Stay tuned. People and Places meet an ex-convict who is helping others to go straight. And don't forget to call us to talk back to Real. In area code 215, call 587-3775 or 587-3747. In New Jersey, dial direct at 757-0272. Stay with us.
Heard you had some trouble, thought I'd try to help you. In my time I've had a little trouble too.
You see, one of the things about the gospel for me, when I was in jail, one of the reasons I never became a Christian is because I didn't feel that it was relevant. This was not relevant. It had nothing to do with shoplifting. It had nothing to do with getting high. It had nothing to do with hustling, okay? But what I'm saying this morning is how can the scriptures be relevant?
Cleveland Bell has spent the last 6 years working to make the gospel message a relevant alternative for convicts and ex-offenders in the Miami area.
In the jail, we find that a lot of guys can quote scripture all day, but it has absolutely no meaning when it comes to practicality. I was a drug addict for 10 years. I was a shoplifter, breaking and entering, B&E, you name it. I committed about every crime that you could possibly commit. And so I think having walked that way and having come out of that situation, I just feel that I just know where their heads are at.
It wasn't being in jail that changed Cleveland. It was his conversion to Christianity while behind bars that gave him the inner strength to make success possible.
The thing that really got me here was I think I basically wanted to share with people what God had shared with me through others.
Even in myself, I'm gonna let it shine. Hey, even in myself, I'm gonna let it shine.
I had done this kind of work for several years before I went to college. And one of the thing that I wanted most than anything else in the world was to be a performer. I wanted to go to Hollywood. I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to show some of the other entertainers how to really be a Christian entertainer, you know.
I'm gonna let it shine. Even in the courtroom, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Not only does Cleveland spend hundreds of hours inspiring prisoners with his music, but he also holds down a full-time job as executive director of Riverside House, a halfway house for first and second-time offenders.
We basically believe here that all of the people that come to us are in need of some spiritual renewal in their lives, where that might just mean a recommitment of their lives to Jesus Christ, or it may be a commitment for the very first time.
In addition to being a fully equipped residential facility for 21 men, Cleveland Bell and the counselors at Riverside House offer residents educational opportunities in basic reading, writing, and math. There is also a thrift shop on the premises where the men can learn the ins and outs of running a business on a day-to-day basis. Motivated by his dynamic spirit and the desire to share the lessons from his life, Cleveland Bell continues to hand out hope through his work and his music.
You know the verse?
Long before religion came to you over the airwaves on programs such as Reel to Reel, preachers used to travel the backcountry lanes to spread the gospel to their dispersed congregations. For some places, that wasn't that long ago. But for other places, well, some things just never change. And by the way, while you're watching this, one of you might want to go to the phone and talk back to Reel to Reel.
Maggie Valley is surrounded by the Smoky Mountains in western North Carolina. The town of Maggie and its remote surrounding communities used to depend on farming as their sole industry. As people discovered this beautiful area, they started moving in and creating a change in the scenery. The population shot up, and the farming industry gave way to a new venture, tourism. Approximately 70% of the land was bought by outsiders, and the mountain people were forced to change their lifestyle, but managed to keep their heritage and traditions.
It's changed a great deal, 40 years. You see the ox and the wagon going up the old dirt road. You don't see that no more. All you see is automobiles, automobiles. The smell off the fumes off of them. But the old ox and wagon didn't make no fumes.
Many things have changed since Todd Henry's great-great-grandfather founded Maggie Valley. In those times of the valley, religion was brought to the people by mountain preachers.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I'll tell you, if you ever get close to the Lord, that's back in the mountains. Most beautiful place that man ever seen. Now, I ain't kidding you, brother, that's right. Religion is not like it is then as it is now. Religion was, religion back in them days. They were believers. But these people this day and time just half believers.
Modern-day preachers, like United Methodist pastor David Reeves, have an easier time reaching the old believers thanks to the modernization of the roads in what used to be the remote areas of Maggie Valley.
The people that you find here who are natives are usually extremely intelligent, very patient people, very persistent in their work. People have come here in the past, preachers have come here in the past, thinking that they'd bring not only the gospel, but civilization as well. Most of the people in my parish, especially the ones who live in remote areas, only want someone to come and visit them, to spend some time with them, so that they'll know that someone besides their immediate family cares for them. And I'm a minister of the gospel, which means it's, besides preaching, it's my job to go and listen to what people have to say, listen to their fears and their worries and their complaints, but also to hear about their joys and the good things that have happened to them, to share their lives with them.
Most of the mountain people in the area are very religious. In the beginning, the valley was divided by the Baptist and Methodist, sharing the same church. Around 1957, the Baptists decided to split away and start their own church. The history of the Catholic faith in Maggie is relatively new and was brought there by Father Michael William Murphy, who was ordained at the age of 81, 11 years ago. He built St. Margaret's Church with his own money around 1967, before there was a priest or parishioners. His mission was to introduce and explain the Catholic faith to the mountain people of Maggie Valley.
And I will say that all of them have been very, very kind to me ever since I came here. I don't believe they like Catholics. In fact, they had never heard anything but lies about Catholics. And I will say, too, about this fellow that did marry the Catholic girl and brought her down there. I heard the old-timers say that some of the people tried to get around and look at her to see what a Catholic looked like. But, and they're good, honest, hard-working people. Most of them Methodists or Baptists, and some of them don't go to any church. But they're mostly good people just the same, and do the best they know how. And you know, if we do the best we know how, the angels can't do any better.
As a minister, people come to me often who have fallen upon bad circumstance and need money or help or something. But most of my job is spent ministering to people, sharing their lives. And trying to live responsibly, you see, and as simply as I can.
Johnny and Fanny Fye are natives of these mountains. Johnny used to be a farmer. When he got married, he found out farming did not make enough money, so he took up public work. He went to work for the Haywood County Sheriff as the jailer, and he worked there for 26 years and outlived 4 sheriffs.
So did you read out of the Bible every day when you went to school?
I didn't. The teacher done the reading.
Oh.
Then we all repeated the Lord's Prayer.
Together.
Yeah.
Yeah. You take great comfort in reading the Bible?
I sure do. I've read the New Testament through about 12 times, I guess.
12 times.
Yeah.
That's better than I have, but I'm a young feller yet.
Yeah, you better get to reading it.
I'm going as fast as I can. You got a favorite part?
No, well, it's all God's Word, and I believe it all.
Mm-hmm.
There ain't nothing in there what ain't true. It hit me or not hit me. It's true. It's God's Word.
I guess if we all believed that, it'd be a better place to live, wouldn't it?
That's right.
I saw the light, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow inside. Praise the Lord, I saw the light.
The enchantment, tranquility, and beauty of the Smoky Mountains attract many tourists. A person can still wander into the majestic Smokies and look around and understand why these mountain people enjoy their surroundings and have strong religious beliefs.
You're close to heaven up there. You're about as close as you ever get. When you leave this world, if you're in the right position, you might be closer. You understand?
I was a fool to wander and stray, for straight is the gate and narrow's the way. Now I have traded the wrong for the right. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. I saw the light, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow inside. Praise the Lord, I saw the light.
You know, Monsignor, it was interesting in that last story to see how the young minister integrated so well with the older people in North Carolina.
And it still shows, too, that the religion, old time or new time, we still have to deal with the basic sociological problems, as the tuition tax credits we saw. Next week, we'll meet local college students whose extracurricular activities include volunteering to repair homes of North Philadelphia residents. And we'll meet some mothers who are helping other parents find their missing children. In the short subjects, Liz Andre will review a bestseller about nuclear war, and in a more peaceful mood, we'll hear from the United States Navy sea chanters. To all of you who took the time to call us during the program, thank you very much. It's nice to hear from you.
And for those of you who haven't gotten a chance, there's still time, because the producers will be manning the phones until 9 o'clock. If you'd like to call in 215 area code, call 587-3775 or 587-3747. In New Jersey, dial direct, 757-0272.
And just before you go to the phones, I'd like to say good night and God bless you.
Thanks for being with us. Well, that was pretty good.
Join the Archdiocesan Boys Choir at St. Peter and Paul Cathedral on May 1st for a concert to benefit St. Edmund's Home for Crippled Children. The concert of children's music will begin at 3 p.m. Admission is $3 for adults, $2 for senior citizens, and $1.50 for children.